Hi everyone, welcome to my channel again. Today we're going to be making some Distress Oxide Magic backgrounds. So I'm starting off using the range of Distress Oxide inks, which are a pigment dye hybrid ink. They oxidize when you add water to them, so they go sort of like a cloudy white. They almost look like a chalk ink, but they blend really beautifully together. They're on a felt based pad like a dye ink, but they're quite opaque when you stamp them over dark colours. They're beautiful to work with. So in the background, this is a page that I've a mop-up page in my Dilutions journal. Lots of old stencils and paints and some stamping in the background from the page on the other side. And I'm just using the blending tool to rub majority of colours on the background and trying to go for a bit of a rainbow go. I want to kind of have a kaleidoscope look when the final background's finished. So I'm using a range of pinks and purples and greens. I'm not sure if I get the blues out on this page because I've got the blue from the paint in the background. Using the Ranger blending tool and just tapping it onto the ink pad and rubbing it into the surface. And again, you can sort of see how they blend and go well together. I'm not being too careful about where I'm putting colour or blending in the edges carefully because I know it's going to be covered in the final background when I've finished it. I don't know what I'm doing here. Oh, I'm getting a stencil. Obviously I wasn't really prepared. So I'm pulled out a stencil, and the jar I'm opening now is a jar of micro glaze. It's a waterproofing glaze that goes over the top of a surface to make it waterproof. Now this works really well with the Distress Oxides because what it does is it actually prevents the oxides from oxidizing and going that chalky white colour and keeping the really pigmented look underneath. It looks beautiful when you put it on a piece, particularly of gloss paper. It glosses it up and gives you a really interesting effect, but I'm going to use it in a slightly different way in this background. The stencil I'm using is one from Kaisercraft, an Australian company. As you can see, I don't tend to clean stuff very well in my house. Everything just gets sort of wiped off and left. I probably should work on that in the future. I was just lifting up the stencil to see. Now, you can't actually see where the microglaves have gone now until I do the next step, which is getting out my Dilutions ink sprays and waiting for the magic to begin. So I'll be using the black Dilutions ink spray, and I'll also be using some of the crushed grape ink spray with the sparkle in it. Just preparing my surface with some tissue, paper towel, because I'm a terror when I get the sprays out. And as you can see, just by spraying it on, you get that instant effect where the microglaze resists the spray, and you can see the background coming through. Now, because I was very impatient, I didn't actually leave that to dry and I blotted it off, and I hated how it looked in the background with the lines from the tissue paper. So I'll actually get the spray to come back in again and respray over the top, and then add in some of the different colours as well. So with this you can leave it to dry naturally, which would probably be the preferred option, and then buff off the excess ink off the top of the dye and you'll get that really stunning background. I really like the effect of having the purple go through it as well. It just gave it that little extra bit of richness. Please excuse my heat gun. As I used to teach classes, it used to be, I've covered it with alcohol inks, so it used to be a really great way to identify my heat gun from everyone else's, but unfortunately it's rubbed off a bit, so I'm going to have to redo that again. Quite like having a customised heat gun. So I tried blotting it off again with a piece of napkin that wasn't as highly textured as the paper towel, which worked slightly better, to get my background, which I was really, really happy with. So I'm just letting it dry now. Okay. So this could be worked on any surface or for a card. Just doing my main focal image now. I've cut a picture out of a magazine, one of the fashion magazines, and just gessoing it just to cover over the image, just a very light gesso. Again, I'm not very patient when it comes to leaving things to dry, and in this case I probably should have been. What I'm doing now is I want to put some texture and colour back into the image, and so I'm using a darkroom door stencil with the Distress Oxides over the top to bring in some extra pattern into her dress, using 3 colours: Faded Jeans and Salty Ocean and Broken China. Then I've got this new favourite stencil, and I cannot remember what company it has come from, but I just love those little crosses and the different sizes. Just adds a little extra piece. It's one of my favourite ways to make a focal image, is to actually paint over a photograph or a cutting from a magazine, gesso it out and recolour it myself, and then really, really sketchy lines, and I'm using a food ball and a Posca paint pen to do this, over the top so it looks hand drawn and hand coloured. For someone who's not particularly confident with her drawing, it makes me feel like I've got a hand drawn image, or at least I've had some input into being involved with that main image. It also helps me, I've noticed when I have tried to now draw stuff myself, because I've sort of been training my hand to follow around those images and notice where the shadowing is happening, I can now transfer that to some of my own drawings, which gives me a bit more confidence. So I'm using the Distress Oxides to colour the image, and it ends up giving it an effect like the old photo coloured images, or hand coloured images on old black and white photos. So just gluing my image down onto the page, and then going back and just re-highlighting. Decided that around the clothing needed a bit more shadowing, so I've just wet my brush and again using the oxides to use almost like a watercolour to add the shading in. And I'm also using the Copic markers just to add a bit more colour into the hair. Trimming up the image, and because I cannot have a journal page without some sort of words or journaling on it, I'm using the Dina Wakley collage paper, collage sayings to collage onto it, and then putting a little bit of gel medium over the top. So I hope this is helpful, and you can use some of the techniques that I've shown in here on your own journal pages or on your own cards. Thanks for watching.